Dabo Swinney versus Tyler from Spartanburg. So a lot of these different programs will have a coach's call-in show during the week where pretty much anybody with a cellular device can call into this show and have the coach's ear for a period of time. Ask a question, tell them something, whatever. It's usually great interaction. I think it helps kind of draw a fan base and the coaches closer together in some sense. But like last night, Tyler from Spartanburg jumped on the mic and just went after Dabo Swinney. And questioned, his pride that has grown, in his opinion, since Dabo Swinney's had success at Clemson. He's quoting scripture at him, saying pride comes before a fall, talking about his hires and questioning the way that he's built his staff over the last couple of years. He's questioning Dabo Swinney, and he went so far as to ask, why are we paying you what we're paying you to have these kind of results? And my first thought in this whole situation was like, there's three people in this conversation. You got Tyler, you got Dabo Swinney, and you have the individual who's supposed to be hosting the radio show. My first thought was like, this dude left Dabo Swinney out to dry, whoever is hosting this thing. Like, we're letting Tyler from Spartanburg just get off a full soliloquy, a full sonnet off his chest on live radio, and Dabo Swinney's just sitting there like it's not his job to cut off Tyler. It's the person who's the moderator of the entire radio show to cut off Tyler. Like, I've done radio before, and in Waco, Texas, even when we got callers that kind of had something to say, and if it went past a certain period of time, it's like, thanks so much for calling. Let's get to what you were talking about. Like, good for Dabo Swinney for stepping in when he did, but like that to me was the first issue with this whole picture and this whole situation. So the thoughts that I have on this are a little bit conflicted. Like, I was slow to go to the Twitter sphere to give my thought on this because I think there is a lot of facets within this situation. And whenever you're dealing with human beings, there's usually some complexities. There's usually not some completely right or completely wrong answer. So I feel a couple of ways about this. And to start with, the initial reaction I had was it kind of felt a little bit off to me. Like, Dabo Swinney, or I should finish what happened if you haven't yet already heard the story. So to reset it, Dabo Swinney goes in on this dude and is like, look at what we've done at Clemson. Look at how I've been successful here. Look at the amount of wins we've had, the national titles. Like, none of that was a thing before I got here. Clemson hadn't been successful in a long time, and kind of essentially pointed to the mountain of evidence, the mountain of success that he's had at Clemson. And says that, I've never failed at anything in my life. I succeed. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's what we're going to do. It's a down year. Yes, 100%. I take responsibility for that. But essentially just pointing to everything great that he's done at Clemson. And, I mean, more power to him. It's well within his right to do that. And pretty much told him, like Kendrick Lamar, sit down, be humble, is what he told to Tyler from Spartanburg. So going back to my original reaction to this, again, it felt a little bit off to me because This isn't a story because Tyler from Spartanburg called in and let Dabo Swinney have it. This is a story because Dabo Swinney just went flamethrower on Tyler from Spartanburg. Like, Tyler from Spartanburg, I don't think he was calling to have Dabo Swinney say back to him, you know what, you bring up a good point, son. I'm glad you called. I do make too much for what we're doing this season. Thank you, Tyler. I will step down. Like, I don't think that was Tyler's hope. Tyler's hope was to get a reaction from Dabo Swinney. I would have to believe, based on the format of this whole operation and the way that he called into this call-in show. And he got exactly what he wanted from where I'm sitting. And so the first thought was like, if I'm Dabo Swinney, like, why are we giving oxygen to this fire? And I know it's easy to say that from where I'm sitting because I'm not Dabo Swinney, where my coach or where my football team is 4-4, and I'm the face of this whole operation, and everyone's questioning me and the way that I do things. And I'm sure there's a ton of emotion. And I'm sure this was probably the final straw in the situations where Dabo Swinney has taken the high road and not given oxygen to the fire. So I completely understand that. But the feeling to me is a lot like the feeling I get whenever I see people with a bunch of followers on Twitter quote tweeting and hanging, buddy with 9 followers and a logo for his profile picture out to dry and just, kind of just sunning that dude. It's like, why are you doing that? Like, nobody's thinking anything about Jerry 42 from, Biloxi, Mississippi with 7 followers and has his school's mascot as his profile picture. They're not thinking anything about that. Nobody's saying, wow, he really got after you. And that's fine if you want to tee off and make an example out of it and get some, juice off of it on social media. And that was, again, a different platform than having an actual call-in show, because you actually have to respond via the call-in show. But like, I would so much rather, if it were me, have heard Dabo Swinney just be like, hey, thanks for calling in, Tyler. Yeah, I want to win some more football games too. Next caller. Like, we're not even having this conversation if that's what happens with Dabo Swinney. So I don't pretend to understand like where Dabo Swinney's at emotionally with all this, because I'm sure he's had a ton of things said about him that he's taken the high road on. But again, it's like, why are we giving life to this situation? You don't have to say anything to this dude. I mean, the mountain of evidence that you have behind you that you referenced, like, everybody knows that. Nobody's questioning in their right mind if Dabo Swinney's right for Clemson. Like, are there some things that he probably could do to improve the situation going forward? Yeah, but I'm sure Dabo Swinney knows that too. So giving life to the situation as a whole to start kind of felt funny to me. Now, the other part of this that felt funny, that kind of was a little bit off from where I'm sitting, and we've said this a couple times about Dabo Swinney, I don't think he's wrong in what he's saying. Like, yes, Clemson before Dabo Swinney, they were not nearly as competitive as they are now. He has brought a whole new brand to Clemson. He's made that program much more competitive than what they've been in the past. He's brought home hardware. Like, he's put Clemson on the map to keep it 100%. Like, in modern college football, Clemson is a footnote without Dabo Swinney and what he's done there over the course of his time as the head coach there. So that's true. But the way that he talked about what Clemson wasn't previously and how they've been successful since he's been there, he talked a lot about expectation and appreciation, and I don't think that's invalid, but I'm also kind of like, well, at what point in time are we going to stop talking about what the expectation was previously? Like, the best way that I could explain this is if I'm a freshman in college and I'm getting C's, and then my sophomore year, I go and get A's, and then my junior year, I get a B minus, and everyone's like, hey, what's up? Why are you getting a B minus? You're an A student. You say, well, hey, I got C's my freshman year. What are you talking about? You think I should get A's just because I got A's my last year in college? No, I got C's before. Like, you see how that kind of feels a little bit funny to make that kind of statement to that sort of issue. Like, people are holding Dabo Swinney to a standard that he's created. People are talking about Clemson a certain way because they've been successful under Dabo Swinney, and it's not like a negative thing to have expectations. Like, the bigger issue would be if Clemson was 4-4 and people are saying, hey, how about Clemson? Good for them. They used to be nothing. Now they're 4-4. Good for Clemson. Like, expectations and pressure, like, that's all privilege. And I'm sure Dabo Swinney understands that. But the fact that we keep citing back to what Clemson was in their history, it's like, okay, that's great that they used to be bad. You made them good. Now, when you're not good, people are going to have an issue with that. That's phenomenal. That's awesome there's belief in this program. Now, the way that people go about it, there's always that extreme portion of a fan base that thinks the coach should be fired and the offensive coordinator should be fired, or fire everybody after any kind of loss, and that's just the nature of the beast. But again, to go back to, hey, well, this is expectation versus appreciation and reality, it's like, I think that's not really a lake I would want to wade into too deeply if I'm Dabo Swinney and if I'm Clemson. So that's kind of the two things that felt off to me. Why are we giving live to this? And then why are we talking about the expectation that was at Clemson however long ago before you got there? Yes, you put Clemson on the map, but the fact that we are now trending backwards in a down year, and you're allowed to have a down year. I don't want to overblow this thing, but there is this sort of sentiment of like, well, the bar is set up here because you set it up here. You got A's last semester. You've proven you're an A kind of football team. And now we're getting B minuses and we're bordering on C plus. So yeah, people are going to have a little bit of an issue because they know Clemson is capable of more. So those are two things that felt funny to me. Now, I do want to give a lot of credit to what he said. Like, I just talked about the content that felt weird, and I talked about the fact that it was weird that there was giving life to the situation, period. But if I'm in that locker room at Clemson, I feel like Coach Swinney went to bat for me. If I'm anybody in Dabo Swinney's camp, if I've ever coached for Dabo Swinney, I feel like he went to bat. Because I think there's kind of this perception around Dabo Swinney of, oh, he's a nice guy. Hey, he's a man of faith. He's going to say the right thing more often than not, except for when he says something cringy or puts his foot in his mouth. And he's gotten a little bit more after some of these, conversations around Clemson. He's kind of been a little bit more outspoken against it these last couple of years, really. But like, I think Dabo Swinney, with the way that he said this, he sent the message like, yeah, I'm a good guy. I'm not a nice guy. Like, yes, there's a culture we have here, and yes, we're going to try and do things my way, which I believe are the right way, and more power to him, a man of conviction. I happen to be a Dabo Swinney guy, to be 100% honest with y'all. Like, I love the way that he does things. I love the way that he goes about his business. But if I'm, again, going back to my point, if I'm in that locker room, I feel like Dabo Swinney went to bat for everybody here, and he defended the way that we do things. Because anytime you take a shot at anybody on a football team, coach, player, otherwise, it's perceived as a shot on the entire organization. And so for him to be emotional and to viciously speak out against that, if I'm a player in that locker room, I love that. It shows me that Dabo Swinney, one, cares a whole lot. So if anybody questioned that, I don't know what to tell you. I don't understand why you would arrive at that conclusion. Second part of this, there's a lot of belief. There's a lot of belief. There's not a lot of questioning his way of doing things. Otherwise, you don't respond with such an outward statement and point back to the results that you've had within your belief system. So I think when it comes to the game this weekend now, there's going to be a lot of extra juice on that Clemson side of things against Notre Dame. Like, if we're going to see Clemson play with some fire, and we've seen it at times. I think the Florida State game, you saw them play juiced up. This game, if the opponent of Notre Dame wasn't enough, this whole story going into it will absolutely be enough. So that's how we feel about that. Again, Dabo Swinney, some things that maybe felt funny about it, but at the end of the day, like, you can't fault a guy for defending his guys, defending his way of doing things, and for defending Clemson as a whole. So if we had to lean a certain way on this conversation, I'll probably lean towards Dabo Swinney, and I can't wait to see how they respond, because I'm telling you, there's going to be some juice on that sideline for Clemson this weekend. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.